All right, this is the Yay. I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is the Yay, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yay!
As always, we are sponsored by Central Works, a new play theater headed up by Gary Graves and Jans Leifler. Central Works, bringing theater one play at a time, but we also want to talk about Plethos Productions. That's why we're here live at Camp Monologa. Let's clap. Camp Monologa, I think this is your second or third day, 2 days? 2 days here, where this is a special fundraiser for Plethos Productions. Plethos has been in its 7th season, they're going into their 8th season, and we're doing this as a fundraiser to have a new space in Hayward, where Plethos will have a home. Plethos has been it means so much for me. I'm a playwright as well as a podcaster, and they produced my play Foreman in Paris, I believe, in their first season. And also they brought in In the Heights, and Norman and I, we were talking about In the Heights.
On the way here? I thought you were about to say you had been a camper.
No, camper. It does remind me of, I remember when I was in, I was maybe, 11, 12 years old and, camping. And so this reminds me, it's such a wonderful space. Are you guys enjoying yourselves at camp? Yeah. It's been wonderful. When's the last time you've been camping?
In the Army.
In the Army?
No, that's not true. I went to the Sierras. My wife and I wanted to have a weekend away, and it turned out to be it was fire season.
Oh, no.
So our campground got canceled, and we went to a different campground. It was nice.
Yeah. So in any case, so that's why we're here. That's why we're doing the live Yay, and we're so happy to help out Plethos Productions and being here at Camp Monologa, and we have a wonderful guest. So in any case, this is a special Yay. We are, who?
Kevin's going to do it.
Oh, there you go. We'll turn it on to Kevin.
Fantastic. Well, to welcome you to Camp Monologa and this special podcast taping, the campers and I are going to sing the official camp song of Camp Monologa. Ooh la la, ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Camp Monologa puts a smile on your face, a magical space, a mystical place. Camp Monologa in the beautiful trees, swaying in the breeze with bees. What do all the tubas sound like? Pa pa, pa pa, pa 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 pa. And we go ooh la la, ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Thank you, campers.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wow, fantastic. You got the song and the people and just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And this is about theater, and we are theater folks. And we have a wonderful panel here. We're going to talk about how to nail your next audition. And we have a wonderful panel of directors. We have Winnie Chan. Winnie, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Winnie is a wonderful director. She's worked with a bunch of theater companies. I think lastly The Pair, and also Plethos Productions. We have John Mayo, and John Mayo, I have your Mayo. I'm sorry. An award-winning.
We do this pretty much every week.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun every week.
Mayo, an award-winning actor and director. You've been seen on or behind the stage throughout San Francisco in the Bay Area for the past 45 years. Altering the Playhouse, Oakland Ensemble Theater, Stage Cabaret Theater, Costa Conta, Musical Theater, and a bunch of others. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We have the incredible Kimberly Ridgway, writer, actress, director. I think you're working with Central Works. With I think you're working with
Playwright Patricia Milton.
Thank you, Patricia Milton.
You had all this on the tip of your tongue.
I did. And I was like, oh, Kim Ridgway, I don't need to write all this down. But in any case, Kim, always with a wonderful smile. How are you doing?
Good, thank you very much.
And we have Salim Rizawi. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you are the not the artistic director.
Casting director.
Casting director for Shotgun Players. And also Theater Works. You work with Theater Works too, right?
Yes, I'm the New Works Festival company manager.
Fantastic. So we have a fantastic panel. We're going to talk about auditions. I have a bunch of questions about auditions, but I guess I'll just throw it up. What are the common mistakes? What are you seeing? Norman, you and I were talking about generations. Like, I started acting. I came out of school in the 80s and early 90s, and we had a concept of, what auditioning was about and what theater was about. And what have you seen? I'll start with you. Just generationally, are you seeing new breed of actors? Are they approaching theater and auditioning differently?
It's every new face is new, so it doesn't matter, what age they are. But I'd say what I'm fascinated with is you think, and it's true for all auditions, you think you know what you're going to see when somebody surprises you, positively or negatively. When somebody surprises you, it makes the day go better.
I'm going to throw it to the panel. I'll start with Winnie Chan. What are you seeing in auditions? Are you seeing good auditions? Are you seeing common mistakes? What are you seeing?
I think I'm seeing some good auditions. I don't know about common mistakes. I think I might have to get back to you on that. I think there are things that people tend to want to do, and that they're showing off maybe too much of one area instead of, a more well-rounded perspective and what you can do in different character abilities. That's one thing I could think of.
One thing, and I'll bring it to John
Mayo.
Mayonnaise. Mayo. Yeah.
Yes.
You got it.
But, Norman and I, we've talked about whether you go to school or not go to school, and there are positives and negatives
Yes,
as far
we
as
do.
the fundamentals, like articulation and just the basic things. I mean, just presenting a story, knowing that there's an arc. And there's an arc in monologues as well, a beginning, middle, and end. So are you seeing folks who do have those fundamentals? Are you seeing folks who are they just want to get on stage, but they don't have the fundamentals? Or what are you seeing during auditions?
You see a mix of auditioners. You see some people that you've seen, over and over again. So you kind of know what to expect from them. Sometimes they call it in. We were talking with Norman before about people doing the same monologue all the time.
For
Yeah.
years.
For years, or the same monologue that everybody else is doing. You see younger people that have just gotten out of school or are in school trying to do theater. But the universal common mistake that's made is people don't prepare. And I think you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but people audition and they haven't even read the play.
Right.
And they ask questions that if they read the play, they would have had the answer for. So the biggest common mistake is don't ask a question that you should already know the answer for, because it tells the director that you just didn't do any prep work, and makes you think as a director they're not going to do any prep work, when they do the show.
Yeah, and I'll turn it to Kim Ridgway. You wanted to follow up on that?
Just one caveat to that is sometimes it is difficult to get your hands on certain plays. They're not available on Google.
And I was also
the
going to say
libraries
new
don't-
works.
And I was going to say also when you have new works. So I do give a little bit of a pass on that. Having said that, if the sides are sent out, even though it's considered a cold read, when you get the sides, it's still considered a cold read. Prepare the sides, right? So if your audition makes it sound like you just got that in hand 12 seconds before you walked in, then it's like, I can tell
Right.
you. Sometimes I can tell that you haven't prepared. And again, sometimes I've been surprised in a good way, and sometimes surprised in a not so good way. So
Let me follow up on that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've dealt with it, Norman, where you have a mix of, let's say, an actor who may not have a lot of experience, but they still have a lot of talent. And then you have the other where you have someone who has a lot of experience, and let's say, for lack of a better word, they may be mailing it in because they know what works or and doesn't. So, do you have a preference as to where you lean?
Well, that's another thing we talked about before, the adjustments. Can
Yeah.
you get them to do
right.
adjustments?
So I lean on talent. I have had in my career, and I hope this doesn't sound like a brag because it's not what I'm trying to do. I've had 4 individuals who have auditioned for me for the first time. They've never auditioned anywhere else, and 3 of them are working actors in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
it's not about what your resume looks like. I also have someone who I love dearly who has been in this Theater Bay Area business for 50 years and phoning it and faxing it in. For those of you young people who don't know what a fax is, no.
Right.
So for that reason, when individuals come in who I've heard their monologues before, or there's just something like I see a spark there, but there's something not coming through for the monologue,
Yeah.
I'll have them adjust. So one of my favorite stories is there was a young man who came in and did a very gut-wrenching, dramatic monologue about confessing to his daughter about killing his wife. And I said, okay, that's great. Do it again like a stand-up comedian. And that individual nailed it. It also showed me that they could take direction and that they could, the instinct is there.
Yeah.
So we directors may ask you, even if you come in with something prepared, do it differently, so that we can see what instinct you have and what direction you can take.
And I'll turn it to Salim, and forgive the you may hear some ambient sounds, but we're outside, and so the wind they're taking part in this. They're taking part in the podcast. But Salim, what are you seeing as well? Are you seeing the same things?
Yeah, I think the same common mistakes. I would also say in preparing, also know what you're auditioning for, and if you are the right fit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're not the right fit, and that's okay. But just don't come into an audition where you are not the right fit because you want to be seen. That's just wasting everyone's time, including yourself.
Celine, can you? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm taking your job.
No.
I
Please,
apologize,
it's all good.
campers
It's
and
all good.
podcaster listeners.
Please go for it. Go for it.
Ooh, I'm a bossy chick. Celine, would you mind expanding on what you mean about not the right fit?
Sure. I mean, that can be any different thing from age to race to body type. As long as you're reading the character description, if you're reading the play, you should know if you are a right fit for... I mean, this industry is a lot based on looks and how you are perceived outside. So as long as you can fit the character description or the director's vision. There's usually a director vision as well attached to a project. So as long as you fit that vision, I think is the appropriate audition to go to.
Well, if you get that information.
If you get that information.
Exactly.
Which would be wonderful. Yeah. I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, though. This year I got to go to the TBA Generals, and if you don't know about TBA Generals, every year the Theater Bay Area Service Organization hosts these. It can be up to 80 theater companies in Northern California coming out for the weekend to watch these auditions. They're all short, and we can definitely spend a lot more time talking about that if you want to, but the thing I want to point to is you prepared your monologue, you're ready to go, and a couple of people in front of you just hits your monologue. And, okay, let's say they didn't do it that well. You're still going to come out and do the same monologue. Let's say they did it fabulously. You really don't want to go out there and do the same monologue. So knowing that you've got that other monologue, some back pocket monologue, now you do age out. So as I started working on Shakespeare, I fell in love with Benvolio. Romeo and Juliet, Benvolio. Nobody's going after Benvolio, but he's got beautiful little speeches, and it's a great way to show off your facility with the text. And then I got to the point where I was just not the right age to be playing some teenager's best friend. Had to let that go. My first monologue when I got to the Bay Area was a Lorraine Hansberry monologue from The Drinking Gourd. Beautiful monologue about a young man who's about to run away from slavery. I aged out of that one pretty quick. But they stayed in my head, so if on the spot somebody said, could you do something else, I could say, well, there's a monologue I used to do. I could do that for you, so that I'm letting you know I'm not the right age for this. But having that back pocket monologue ready, having something else ready, and the other thing I would say, again, for TBA Generals, it's timed. So they say 2 minutes, and you do your monologue, and your monologue goes 2:10. At 2 minutes, they're going to say thank you, and the appropriate response, they're going to say time, and the appropriate response is thank you, and you leave. Because if you were totally nailing your monologue at that moment, we're all sitting there going, wow, that was pretty impressive, and we're sorry you ran over, but we're going to even be happier when you finish at 150, 140, and you walk off the stage. Thank you, and walk off, and we're like, oh, we want to see more from you.
Yeah.
So,
And even better,
just a few things.
sometimes the director will say, hey, let me see something else.
Well, in that situation, you can't. But yeah, if you leave them wanting
Well, not the
more,
generals.
if you want to leave them wanting more, it's much better than they feel like, didn't you get the memo? Didn't you understand what we said? If you can't follow this simple direction, how are you going to be to work with?
Exactly. And I've been in situations where, let's say I do a monologue, and they're like, wow, that's fantastic. Can you do another one? Can you do, let's say, a modern one or something else? And if you don't have that in your back pocket, and really we're talking about, don't be, for lack of a word, a lazy actor. You know, be prepared. Not only know the material, especially if it's Shakespeare. You know, if you are asking questions about Shakespeare and, you know, then what's going on. But know the material that you're working with and also have, you know, a backup. Let me go back to the panel. The concept and something that we talked about on the Yay, not only are you auditioning for the company, but sometimes the company is auditioning for you. You know, there have been plenty of times where a young actor may not know the company. You're fully free to talk about, hey, as an actor, I want to ask questions about the company. You know, how do you work and all of that stuff. Can you guys talk about that? I'll just throw it out there. Like, just the concept of an actor knowing their value and wanting to know what is the work situation going to be. You know, how do you handle your auditions or whatever. A question that an actor would ask someone who's doing the audition. Does that make sense?
Where do you want to start?
I can go. As a casting director, I have that information up front, and I'm able to respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
As a freelance director, I'm not able to speak for the company, especially if I'm, first working for them for the first time. I can speak directly to how I work and how I am as a collaborator, but I can't speak for the company itself, which
Yeah.
is why I think it's important to have a company representative in the room as well.
I was going to follow up because there are some actors. We've had actors say, "I did a great audition. I got cast. It was wonderful, but my relationship with the director was not the best experience because they didn't know how the director worked or whatever." And a lot of times, I feel the actor doesn't gauge. They just want to get cast instead of thinking to themselves, let me figure out how you work. Kim, did you want to, or I'm just going down the line.
I want to get cast. What do you
So-
mean?
But do you know what you get?
So, I don't typically have those conversations about how I work with actors until my actors are cast. Now, if someone asks me, I'm open book. Let's discuss, because I also want to make sure it is a good fit for the person that wants to work
Yeah.
in this. But at the beginning of once I cast or as I am casting the individual, we talk about what's the best way you receive communication. What's the best way that you receive feedback? What's your best form of communication in itself? Like if I email you, I'm expecting a response, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But also just how you relate to others. I am very much a director who is very collaborative with my actors, with my design team. I have my vision, but by all means, bring what you brought in,
Yeah.
right? You're hired for your craft.
I'll flip the script because you're also an actress.
Yeah.
Do you ever have those questions when you walk to an audition?
Nope.
Never.
Let me tell you why. Because this is just a me thing, right? I am there to audition. I am there for you to see what I can do.
Gotcha.
Once I'm cast, then let's have those conversations.
That's a good point.
But for
Yep.
me, I don't want to feel like I'm taking up the space. I don't want to take up the room. I don't want to take up, if I have 5 minutes for an audition and my monologues equal 3, I don't want to take up the 2, talk about that, or roll into someone else's time. But that's a me thing.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Did you guys want to follow up on
Yeah,
that?
if I may jump in, I don't, as an actor, I don't really ask these questions either, but I do my research. I may not audition for a project if I know that if I don't know much about this director, if I don't know how they work.
Yeah.
I might ask around in the community to know how they are, what working for this company is like. And I think you should do your research. Right? It is a lot of time commitment, a lot of times, especially in community theaters. We're not getting a lot of compensation for it, and it's taking up a lot of your life.
Yeah.
So if you're going to spend this much time with these people, you should know how they work,
Yeah.
and you should know a little bit about whether this is something that you want to keep doing and you want to do.
Sure. I do have another quick question. What value do you place in the actual resume? I've had some directors who are like, I could care less. You came out of Harvard, or you went to this great. How much value do you put into it at all?
I can answer that. Almost
John Mayo.
Almost none.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I can remember being a young actor and having this expansive resume. That none of it was true.
Whoa! People lie on their resume.
I did. I did. So I'm assuming that other people did as well. Though, as a director, the resume is important to me because it gives me places to call for references on people that I don't know. So if I'm auditioning somebody and I am just wowed by this person that I've never seen before, I'm faced with, do I go with somebody that I worked with that's going to be okay, that I can trust 100% to show up and has a good work ethic, or do I go with this person who excited me to the point of made me start rethinking the play, but not know what their work ethic is? That's where the resume comes in.
Yep.
So I almost always, on every person that I've never seen before, is call for references, especially in this community. It is a very small community. It only takes 3 calls to get 3
Or text
references on somebody.
Yep.
And there have been times where the references were, I love that person, and other times where the reference was, asshole,
careful.
stay away.
Yeah.
Which is an important thing to think of as an actor, and you've touched on this.
Bingo.
The actor should be doing that for the company and for the director too, because directors are just like actors. Some of us are assholes. Some of us haven't done our work. Some of us are phoning it in, and if you call around and ask that, you can choose whether to do that play if offered based on your own research and not being surprised.
Yep.
But-
By the way, if any of you have any questions or you want to raise your hand to ask, feel free.
I want to touch on
Please.
there are times when your resume can get you a role, but I don't know. Maybe you want it, but I won't say show or place. But one of the more prominent theaters in the Bay Area, character got a major role. I can say Shakespeare because there are easily more than a handful of Shakespeare companies, big Shakespeare companies in the Bay Area. This guy got the role. I really think he got the role because he played it before in New York City. So they're like, oh, great, there's our lead. We got it. It turns out the place he had done it in New York City was a church. So it was basically a community theater. And it was obvious to me, and I'm sure anybody else who was paying attention as we went through the process, that he was trying to keep up with everybody else on stage. And when you're the lead, that should not be it.
So that's not a lie. That's the
don't let your
embellishment.
resume get you into trouble. Salim and I got to work on a show at the Playhouse. I was understudying. I got to go on, so I put that on my resume. Earlier this year, I was understudying at ACT. I did not get to go on. I'm not putting that on my resume, because if somebody saw the show and they saw that on my resume, they'd be like, what are you talking about? And if it's the SF Playhouse show, I can say, I got to go on. I actually got to do 2 performances. Yeah.
May I ask, Norman, would you still put, I've seen this before, where someone will get the role, don't get a chance to go up, but they just put understudy on the resume. Because that tells me something too. That says that this company, this director says you're good enough to be in this role, but there
Sure.
was something in this audition that there was this other little spark that this person actually got it. But we know that we can trust that you go on if you do get performances. So I guess my question to you is, why not put it, even if you throw in parentheses for the ones you did get performances, got performances, and the other ones you don't?
While during that period when I was working on the show, any auditions I did, I either wrote it in or I think I even put it in a few times. Once I got past that point, I was like, my resume is long. and I start looking at what I want to get rid of and what I want to have a conversation about. Because I'll tell you, as when I'm auditing, if I'm not looking at that piece of paper right now, I want to see what you're going to do, and then when you walk out of the room, I might take the moment for it. So if I'm trying to impress somebody, yes, ACT, I was there, then yeah, I want to do that. But you get 6 months past that, and it's like, really? You haven't done anything else? You couldn't put anything else on your resume?
May I throw one other thing out? We
Sure.
had started this conversation about common mistakes. It's an annoyance for me. I don't know if it's a mistake, but see if you can get your resume to one page.
Exactly.
I have seen. I'm like, ooh, a book report, and I haven't. I graduated in '92. Also, I'm starting to notice this common practice of, I am going to just email you my headshot and resume. We do like tangibles in the room,
Bring it
especially
in.
for callbacks, because I can put the faces of who I think is my potential cast together. And it's really difficult to do that if I am not seeing your face. But that's just a really good practice. And a lot of theaters keep their databases.
Yeah,
Tangible
the paper,
paper. So if you bring that, even if this isn't the right fit for you, not that you did a bad audition, it just might not be the right fit for you, we can keep that information and then recall that later.
Exactly, and that's just a basic thing. Bring it in, and also, I hate to say this, make sure your headshot is up to date. Have we seen that before?
That one I'm not as worried about. When you stand up in front of me and I'm like, oh, you probably, 5 years older than it looks in the picture.
Yeah.
That I'm not that worried about.
What about
when
15?
When it's 15, then you really should have gotten some new pictures.
Yeah.
Or if you really seriously changed your look.
Right.
But again, if you've changed your look and you give me a fabulous audition, I understand how much headshots cost. I'm not that worried about it.
Wendy, I wanted to bring you in, and also Salim, because. But on an audition, like I worked with, I was with a company called EastEnders Repertory Company, and there was a wonderful director, Susan Evans, who would always say, when I look at a resume, I usually look at what directors they've worked with beforehand, because that's a good reference. I'm like, oh, okay, so you work with these folks. I know how you work, or how you're going to work in the audition when we're in rehearsals. Do you pay attention to that at all, or not at all?
I'm happy to go first. I would say, especially for, if it's a digital audition, I definitely only look at the audition first before I look at anything else.
Gotcha.
Then in that reference phase of making sure that this is someone that I want to work with, then I do look at either the theater company or who they've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a director that I know and trust, then I may call them up. I
Yep.
may just say that you've worked with them a couple times, this is probably good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same thing, if you're uncertain about them or you don't know them, maybe just shoot a quick text to each other, right? Or also when I directed here, it was, we had digital auditions, and I didn't know one person, but I was considering her for the lead role, and she didn't have a lot of experience, but she did have a lot of lead roles in high school and school, and I was like, okay, so she can carry a show,
Right.
And then I just did the work with her in callbacks, and I gave her that lead role, and now she's like leading regional theaters
Awesome.
in the area.
We love hearing those
You just have
stories.
to commit to somebody as long
Yeah.
as they've done the work.
No, that's
The
awesome.
resume is not super important.
No, I love those stories. I was going to ask, is it unrealistic? Because I think a dream that a lot of actors have is, yes, I've read I'm going into this audition, I'm probably not right for the role, but maybe if I give a good enough audition, they'll see something different in me. Is that realistic, or should people just say, hey, listen, I'm probably not right for this thing, maybe I should just...
Ooh. I think that goes back to what I was saying before.
Going against
of,
type,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, just doing your work, doing your homework, and are you the right fit for that role? And I've also had people come to me at auditions for reading for one part, and they really want to be seen for this other part. And I can say, I'm happy to see you for that role, but we're actually going in a different direction for this role. So
Yeah.
do you really want to spend your time and your energy into this particular audition?
Yeah.
I think it's always good to have somebody that you trust around you, because while I personally am 70 years old, and I know I only look 25. We can agree on that, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Okay. The reality is,
Yeah,
is
this is
we're not
radio,
the
so,
we're
yeah.
not the best judge of our own skills or our own looks. It's always nice to have somebody that can speak truth to you. So if you think that you're right to play a part, and if you even question it, I would call up the person that you trust and say, what do you think about this? If they don't just immediately go, oh yes, you should do that, I think you're right for that part, don't do it. You know, don't audition
Good.
for it.
Yay. Yay.
Now I was going to ask about, is there a difference as a director auditioning someone who is equity versus non-equity? I don't know if there is a...
Of course there is.
You said, of course, there is.
I say, of course there is. No, because equity has lots of rules.
Oh.
I'm not talking about talent.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, I'm not talking about talent. For those of you who are not equity and are considering it, and gets back to that, you got that short resume. There are not a lot of theater companies around here who know you. What you're basically doing is, everybody I know who's gone equity spends at least 6 months, maybe a couple of years getting this. Hey, so Norman, got this role, think you'd be great for, my schedule's perfect. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, you know I'm equity. Oh, you're equity. Oh, no. And that's more the thing to me. And so in that sense, but the other sense of it is I've turned equity because I was working with companies that were used to working with equity. I liked knowing that that was a bar, that when I walked in, there was never going to be the, you know what, we got started half an hour late, so we're going to go half an hour more. No, you're not. Not in the contract. Can't do it. So in that sense, but no, in terms of talent, oh my gosh, I am working with, we're working with a young woman right now, Giselle Garcia.
Who's excellent.
And we're doing a Baldwin project. Baldwin Centennial is next week. We're opening next week. We can say more about that. But she is fantastic, and this is her second show, her
Exactly.
third project since she's been in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And she's doing accents, and she's just bringing it.
And getting off book.
And yeah, so I'm like, yeah, she's not equity. So answering the question with all
It's
that.
beautiful just what you said about, she's untrained, but you can tell that she did her homework, right? So you talked about to school or not to school. Hone your skill, whatever that means. But if you're really serious about this profession, right, then just be serious about the profession. So it doesn't matter if you're at Berkeley Rep or Berkeley Shakes. Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
But we understand. We understand.
No, we do. You know what? Thank you. The point is, right, whether it's a huge equity, right, it's a huge equity company that's world known, or like a really cool Bay Area based community theater, it's still come in with the professionalism, still hone your craft, still know what you know, because we see that. I'm telling you, like Mayo said, we are 1 degree of separation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I can make a phone call to learn about someone's work ethic.
Yep. And there was a good friend of mine, Raymond Ray. We've actually had him on the Yay, and he was auditioning. He was a director for a piece he did, The Sweet New, and he asked me about an actor that I worked with beforehand, and I had to tell him in not so many ways, that actor, he's got issues. So as a performer, thank you, and I see a question there, but you have a reputation as well, so be careful, you know, the company or the pieces that you do and how you treat people and how you work in the space, because that will follow you. You may say, you know, I hated that company or that production that I did. 2-3 years later, that your reputation will still follow you. So,
Any other question?
Yeah,
Yes.
I was wondering if the other panelists could speak to the question that you posed about equity, non-equity, in terms of auditioning and what you've all seen. Or I forget how the question.
have
was
any of you had
exactly.
to? I mean, it sounds like you've dealt with mainly non-equity, because I guess you have to be a part of an equity company.
No?
Okay.
Well, that was contract, so we'll get to that.
Sure.
Sorry, what was the question at hand?
Have you had to deal with both equity and non-equity actors in an audition setting?
And did you find a...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've all have dealt with both. I An actor is an actor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't deal with like money or contracts or anything like that unless they've been
That is
cast.
up to the company's discretion.
Gotcha.
As a director, that is not my job.
I hear you. I hear you. What about anyone else?
You ever watch TV and think, how the hell did that person ever get that role on TV? That person got that role because they knew how to network and they knew how to get in the room,
Yep.
and they happened to be what was looked for. It didn't have to do with a whole lot of talent. You can go on an audition, at least a TV audition, and everybody pumps you up and says you are perfect for this role. I mean, I've had this happen. You are perfect for this role. They saw your headshot, wear exactly what's on your headshot, go in there, you walk in there, they greet you, John, how are you doing? We're so excited to see you. Here's the copy. You go into the room, they tell you to go in there, and there are 50 people with Argyle shirts and bow ties and horn rim glasses that look exactly like you. So a lot of the times, equity is this, I mean, I'm equity. That doesn't make me any better or any worse than anybody else. So just because somebody has a label of equity doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. Most of the times you are not having equity actors audition in a non-equity theater, and sometimes vice versa. In an equity theater you will have non-equity actors. So I would go into it as being professional. This is what I want to do. This is what I've trained for. I'm as good as anybody else, and just leave it up to your talent to have them decide. I can guarantee you that you will get picked for your talent, not for your label.
There you go.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And to jump in on, sorry.
Corinne Ritchie.
To jump in on that a
Yes,
little
yes,
bit,
yes.
everybody that I know that has gone equity has gotten consistent work with equity companies because they've just been working for the industry for long enough that they can build up this work, so they can choose to, especially if it's someone that's based in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talent who are not equity. It's not because they're not talented, it's because they want more work from more places, and that is just the reality of being an artist in the Bay Area.
I hear you. We had Corinne Ritchie.
I'd love to hear about memorable audition moments. Stand out. Any
Oh,
audition
I've got one that I love, which is close to home. Like some of you here will recognize this. We had a young man come in to audition for a piece. And he actually came in, this was years ago, but he came in to audition for James Baldwin. He's reading the script, and he comes over to me and says, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Is he gay? I said, well, yeah. Oh, okay, give me a minute. And so I said, yeah, I'll go on to the next person. And the next thing you know, he was sliding out the door, and I was like, wait a minute, so you auditioned for this part, which is based on a historical figure. You could have just looked him up, and one of the first things, you'd have found out he's black, and you'd have found out he's gay. And you didn't even do that much? Like, okay, I'm glad you left, because at that point we were like hungry to find somebody, and it's like, good.
Yeah. Memorable moments.
Memorable
You're
moments.
casting
in
director.
audition.
You've seen a lot.
You start.
I don't know that I have like a specific situation. I think just meeting so many different artists, and I'll go back to that one artist that I saw here based on a digital audition, how memorable she was that I gave her that role, that leading role, and now seeing her lead roles all throughout the Bay Area. I think that has been a memorable moment for me, for sure.
Thanks. I'm going to make it quick. Can I give you two?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. One common mistake is don't worry about coming into an audition in character. I had somebody very recently
Wow,
come
that's
in
really
character.
method.
The character in which they were auditioning was, to use John Mayall's words, an asshole. And it was the most uncomfortable audition that we ever had. And then when they walked out, she turned around and goes, thank you so much. That was great. And I was like, wait, well, what? And it was not needless to say, she didn't get cast because I'm like, that's who you are, because
Right.
that's how you walked into the room. The other memorable audition, actually, you know what? I'm gonna move on because I forgot that quick. I'm getting old.
That was a cool one.
You can come back to it if you get it.
I pass.
All right, I have two. A good example. Someone had come in for a different role. I had asked them to cold read for another role, and it was a complete cold read because they hadn't seen the sides yet. They had moved me to tears by the end of the read, and that was really wonderful. They just showed their most authentic self through the material
awesome.
that I gave them. Another example was someone, this is for a general audition, came in and did a monologue where they were drunk for about 5 minutes. And I still remember this because at minute number 3, I turned and looked at my other people at the table and I was like, do we stop this or do we just let this go?
And actually, I'm going to share one. I'm going to share one of your stories.
Huh?
You told, it was one of the great, episodes that we had where you shared a story of a mutual friend of ours who had a coach teach her how to do this monologue. And she went into, I think it was the Generals, right?
She went to TVA Generals, yes.
And killed it and actually did an excellent, excellent audition.
2 pieces. She did a Shakespeare and then she did a contemporary. She took a breath in between and really got herself ready. She was so professional and focused. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Do you want to tell the addendum?
Oh, so I was so happy. I was so impressed. I had seen her in college and cast her in a show and enjoyed working with her, but she was very much a raw talent. So after seeing this audition, I was like, I don't know what happened, but woo-wee, that was impressive. So I asked her, and she said, I got coached by one of the more prominent people in the Bay Area. I went, well, they knew how to pull that out of you. That's wonderful. So I saw that she was playing a lead role in this beautiful, very delicate play. And I was like, wow, I know the play, and I would normally not go see this play because it's hard to get all of the notes. You've got like 5 actors who have to just bring it in this wonderful way. I was like, I don't want to see somebody mess that up. So I thought, after seeing this audition, I have to go see this. All of the things I knew about her before that audition, that's what I saw on stage. And I
She- all her
realized that
bad
this
habits.
coach had basically just said, here's how I would do it.
Yep.
And forced her to mirror him. And that's what she did.
Yeah.
And then didn't learn anything from it clearly. And so I'm sitting there to the point of, I many years ago got in the habit of, I will take friends, I can get tickets to Cal Shakes. I will take friends with me to Cal Shakes and say, please understand, I am not freezing. There is no play in the world I need to see where I need to sit here for an hour freezing. So when we get to intermission, if that fog is rolling over here and everybody's in blankets and that's not enough to keep me warm, we're leaving. That's not even a question. I said, I'm gonna check in with you, and if you want to catch, I can give you a friend. You can go with somebody else. I'm not doing it. I would have left this show. I totally would have left this show, but it was so far away. I was like, okay, we'll stay to the end.
Which is a question I'll ask you, directors. Have you cast someone who did a wonderful audition, and you're like, oh my God, in the rehearsal process, like, what happened?
I don't want to speak for all of us, but yeah. So I guess my follow-up question to the other directors is, what do you do? What have you done?
That's a great question.
You live with the decision that you've made. You spend extra time.
Yep.
You coach the person. One of the things that we all have to realize is there are many levels of theater, and this doesn't denigrate any of those levels, but there are theater companies that attract new people. There are theater companies that are looking for much more experienced people. As a director, you have to also understand that you're in this to educate. And just because you made a bad decision doesn't mean that you can go to that person and say, I made a bad decision, I'm going to have to replace you. Now, if the person doesn't show up, doesn't hit their mark as far as learning their lines when they have to learn. You certainly can, and I have gone up to people and said, I need to replace you. That's
And
just
hopefully
the
you can do it as early as possible.
Yes, as early as possible, because you get painted into a corner. But
Yep.
if the person is there and they're giving 100% and they're doing everything that you asked and they're not quite hitting it, you're a director. You're supposed to be able to figure out how to
Yeah.
educate that person and get them to do the best work that they've ever done. That's
Yeah.
part of the job.
And adjust your expectations.
Yes.
So that you say, how else can I tell this story so it's not about. I did a film project once, and the script said that it was about the other character. It said it throughout the whole film script. When we started shooting, I noticed that every time we do a scene, we do 1 or 2 takes, and then the director said, it's great. We're going to, and I'd see them whisper to the director of photography, they were resetting the camera. We're going to shoot that again. And so where in the script it said, it's focused on the other character, and I'm just the sidekick, they were suddenly doing, and when the final cut came, it was clear. That character would start talking, and then you'd see me reacting. And I was like, oh. And I learned that lesson as a director. Instead of me doing what I thought the play was about, how can I reconfigure this story so it still works and showcases you at the talent level you're at, but doesn't make us depend on you to lift more weight than you can carry right now?
Yeah. And I'll bring this to with Salim. Have you been in that situation where, let's say, you thought you had a talent, and let's say the talent is there, but for whatever reason, you're seeing things that you didn't see during the audition? How do you deal with it?
I think it's exactly what John said. It's just you're also a coach, you're
Yeah.
a trainer, so you coach as much as you can, but you also should prepare for a backup plan, especially now with all of the health conscious we're being.
That's right.
You
Forgot
have
about COVID and all
you
that
have
stuff.
understudies, or if
Yeah.
you don't have understudies, you build an understudy and say, hey, just need you to study this role.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anything's going to happen, but just in case. But you don't give up on that original person. You cast them for a reason, so part of your job is also to coach.
Yeah, and I'll bring it to you, Winnie. I mean, obviously, you see someone who you cast, you see a talent. Bringing that talent, I've always wondered, because I've never directed before, is there a language that you bring to someone who, let's say, may not understand, or let's say, I don't know, they're young to the theater experience. It's like, listen, during this audition, during this rehearsal process, I'm not seeing the thing that I saw during audition. I mean, how do you get that out?
Yeah, I feel like that is pretty much as we shape the story together, right? It's a conversation. You do that during table work. You do that as you work the scenes after you finish blocking it. And I think actually a big percentage of my work is trying to find more into the character, and that's kind of what I love about directing, is to work with the actors to figure out what more can we bring to this character. What real life experiences do you have that we can relate to, that we can pull out, or what is some shared media that we know, that we understand together and understand from that character development that we can bring into this character.
Yeah.
And it's a constant conversation, and I would say there are examples of people who you cast them and they don't have the, they're not as well versed in a certain area that you had hoped they would be. But there's also just the simple, I think, discovery of a play that is that work, and so it's just more or less that you need to do in order to build the story that you want to
Yeah.
tell.
And would that be, because here's another question, and also hopefully someone's keeping track
We're
of
at
time.
Yeah, we're at time.
We are at time? We have to cut it?
If you want to start wrapping it up. That's
Okay, well, I was going to get into the art of the cold read, but we can talk about that later. But it's been wonderful. We have Winnie Chan, we have John Mayo, thank you, Kimberly Ridgway, and Salim Razawi. We want to thank you so much. Any last words, any last bits of advice that you want to give to someone who wants to audition, let's say for the first time?
First time auditions.
Or let's say someone who's getting back into it after years of being away.
Do a recall of do your homework. Reading the play is really important. Know your characters.
The 6 Ps. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Hey, there you go.
Just do it.
Yep.
Just step out and do it. If you don't be your own saboteur, take the chance, and maybe you get lucky. If not, you'll learn something, hopefully.
And have fun while you're doing it.
There you go. There you go. And that is it. Thank you so much. Thank Plethos for bringing us on, and hopefully folks in the audience have learned a little bit of something. It's been great, and also we want to encourage people, go to GiveButter/GoPlethos. to continue to donate, because we want to have that space in Hayward for everyone, and
New theater in
for
Hayward,
new theater in
yes.
the Bay Area. It's going to be wonderful, and the outro music.
Cue the outro.
Yeah, thank you so much once again. That's a wonderful Saturday afternoon. And as Norman and I always say,
We gotta find a better sign-off.
And we are out. Thank you once again.